So, Arsenin, you mentioned a couple of questions ago the idea of customization, and of course, this idea of feature function fit, I would say, to the organization. But what are your thoughts on ERP, software customization in general? Because customization can be a good thing in order to better fit the operational processes, but isn't too much a danger?
Oh, absolutely. See, customizations are normally done in order to get that better fit. There is a capability you need. It's not in the solution set right now. It might be on the roadmap, whatever the reason is. So first of all, we want to get away from customization, but more extensions. And why would you need that? Suppose you're in a business that does something really unique. It's not an industry-based thing. And what you don't want is to put that in an ERP that everybody gets and nobody's using. So making it industry specific is the level you want to go, or even sometimes within that industry, where in the supply chain do you operate? So it's good that you do this for where you differentiate yourself as an organization against your competitors. So if you do something unique and there's nobody has that capabilities, it could be justified. But here's the danger. If you do it too much, then you're also putting yourself, I always say, and I take the analogy, it's almost like a jacket you made. It's perfectly to order, right? it fits perfectly. And now what? Now you're working out and you grow some muscles. Oh, well, guess what? Jacket doesn't fit. Or you go on a vacation and you have an all-inclusive for 3 weeks and you come back and the jacket doesn't fit because you gained a little bit of weight. So that is the danger. And the other thing is customizations are not built future-proof. Customizations are not, they're only built in how you operate today, typically. Because making it future-proof is more expensive. And, you have to do something to the solution, maybe parameter settings. I have very rarely seen people doing it in that way. So what that actually does is that jacket fits right now, but maybe not anymore in the future. And that's the danger of, are you creating something that holds you back over time? Can you imagine that an organization now is held back because you built something to optimize one piece of the process?
So, Arsenin, do you have a magic number then when an organization looks at the fit? Is there a magic number for customizations or even extensions? Is it 5%, 10%? What's the threshold where even though almost every organization, even if it's the best fit possible out of the box, requires a certain degree of adjustment, let's call it, or tweaks in the form of customizations or extensions? So I guess to follow up on that, Arsenin, can you, number one, just maybe explain to our listeners a little bit more about how you're defining and using customizations versus extensions in the Infor context? And what would that limit be?
Well, and this is a little bit dangerous with limits. In principle, I would say 0.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
If you could run it as is, you're setting yourself for a very smooth ride going forward. But that's also not realistic. So we have a little bit of a concept called 60-30-10. Or 60% is just come, POs, sales orders, forecast. And then there is 30% what we call configuration-wise. You need to activate a little different process in the solution. So it's not coding, it's just activating or deactivating settings in the system that are typically not done either by that industry, or you have a division that does a little bit different and they want to tweak for their division a little bit of process.
But that's true configuration already built into the product, right? That's hitting switches essentially.
And then you could talk about 10%. Now, the 10%, when I did that global implementation a couple of years ago internationally, there were 66 sites in 4 continents, right? And the switches, we did a lot with the switches because they were international. Sometimes you have a different way of doing financials because that's required in that country. The 10%, now you're talking about a deficiency between what the system is capable of doing and what you need. And now you need to disposition that and say, okay, how do I want to solve it? And what we often did in not only how to solve it, but we said, what are the one requirement that makes that extension very complex? Because, if you want to solve 5 requirements in that extension, and one of them is making it 10 times bigger than it needs to be, can we live without that one? And so we have a very good discussion on what is really needed for the business and what makes the configuration so complex that you actually spending too much time, effort, and there is actually no ROI on. So that's another way of looking at that 10%. I have seen implementation 98. Actually, we have done implementation with 0 customization. We did some in the reporting area, but that's natural. The
Yep.
difference what we also have between customization and extension. In customization, that's typically what we do in our terminology, in Infor's terminology, is something that we did on-prem. You could change almost anything you wanted. In the cloud, it's not possible. So how do you allow an organization to change something in our application suite, but don't break the multi-tenant environment and be able to take on the next improvement area, which is coming in our case every month. Every month we are applying that for our customers in the multi-tenant environment. So an extension is a capability you build for a customer that doesn't break the solution set as itself. And therefore you are future-proof. And that helps, of course, in moving forward. And then in one time when we have customers who had that, said, oh, that feature is coming out in 5 months. So at that time, we're actually going to remove that extension.
Yeah.
Right? So the difference between an extension and a customization, in our world, customizations can make you stuck, and an extension makes you future-proof. And that's why we do not want customizations anymore. We really do extensions.
Sure.
So that 10% is where if you say the fit, there's no fit there. And I've seen implementation 98, 95, 80. If you go below 80, then you need to think about either do I do something that is so unique nobody else does in the world and it's worthwhile, or maybe you pick the wrong solution set.
Yeah. And I think that's where part of that pre-sales and pre-selection comes in, is really to the best of your ability as an organization is trying to figure out what that might look like for the vendors that you're considering. Maybe
also to give you a practical example, because we have talked very theoretical. So my two industries I know very best as a vice president for industry and strategy is, for instance, aerospace and defense. And when you do defense and you have a DoD contract, there are things that you have to have. You need to have DPAS, the Defense Product Acquisition system, in order to reprioritize supply. Mm-hmm. You got to send that to your supplier, or contract flow down, or the definition of fees and penalties within the contract. So those capabilities are essential. And if you don't see that in the solution set, then you have to wonder if you actually have a good aerospace and defense solution set. Mm. In high tech, there are differences. In automotive, there are differences. So without those capabilities, you're just increasing the misfit of the capabilities of the solution versus what you need as an organization.